Miss Lizzie. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some disease. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome, guys. Miss Liz in the house. That's right. And it's not a Tuesday, it's a Monday because we have a rescheduled tea time. You know, life happens, and that's the way Miss Liz works. So I get them in here right away. Boom, boom, boom. That's what we do on Tea Time with Miss Liz. So if you guys haven't followed Miss Liz yet and you want to know more about all of these incredible tea times, follow Miss Liz on her YouTube channel at Miss Liz's Tea Times, on my platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. Let's get you over there and let's get you checking these tea times out and sharing these tea times worldwide with everybody. If today's tea time resonates with any of you guys, please share it out to a friend or a loved one or coworker, all of that good stuff, because that's what these tea times are all about. We do not serve a beverage in this house. We serve real life tea times, real life stories. So let's get the disclaimer going, and then let's get Dr. Brad Montagne in here, and we're going to talk about what they don't want us to know about chronic illness and Lyme disease. So we're going to be talking about his book and all that good stuff. So let's get over to the good stuff. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live shows. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicated to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guest viewers and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotional triggering subjects. Listeners and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from your qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or visit my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect those wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Now let me give you a little bit on who I have in the back studio. So today it is my job to welcome Dr. Brad Montagne to the Tea Time table. Dr. Brad has spent decades working in functional medicine, helping people who often felt overlooked or unheard in the traditional healthcare system. His passion is helping patients get to the root cause of their health struggles rather than just treating the surface. What makes his work so meaningful is not just his medical expertise, but his compassion. He has walked alongside people facing chronic illness, Lyme disease, and conditions that left them feeling hopeless, and reminded them that healing is not out of reach. His approach blends knowledge, empathy, and the belief that small steps can lead to big transformations. This afternoon, we'll explore his journey, his insight into health, and how we can all take better care of ourselves, body, mind, and spirit. So as we gather around this cup, let's open our ears and our hearts. Friends, please join me in saying welcome to the table to Dr. Brad Montagne. Let me get Dr. Brad in here. Welcome, Dr. Brad.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I think this is going to be an enjoyable conversation.
Right? I just feel like I'm rambling at the beginning of the show, and all of my listeners are like, what is she saying again?
Boy, you got a lot to say. There's no doubt about it. And, that's good.
So, Dr. Brad, let's take you down some rabbit holes before we get to the chronic illness and Lyme disease. Who were you as a little guy, and who are you now?
Boy, who I am now, I didn't even know existed when I was a little guy. I grew up in a very dysfunctional home with 5 narcissists. Chronic illness started with me at 5 years of age. I'm in a hospital room late at night. No explanation of what's going on. Just do this and you'll feel better, which is what everybody ends up getting. Just was really, really sick when I was a young kid. And that was a 24/7, 365 days a year, 4 years on end. And I learned back then how to cook because I didn't feel good eating what everybody else did in the house, and learned to manage my own stuff. Later, I got the tools to figure out what caused all those things. And we've been helping people get out of the hole for 4 decades now.
It's Dr. Brad, you said 5 years old you had chronic illness?
Yeah, it's when it started.
So do you know what caused that chronic illness? Because I want to get into the chronic illness because I felt it really important to get it out there because there's a lot of misconceptions about chronic illness out there.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was sitting down at a table with my mom and one of my brothers a couple of years ago. And when I was 19, I was working construction. My back went out and I went to the hospital, typical thing that just didn't work. So I ended up going to a chiropractor myself, and he showed me that I had a bunch of compression fractures in my back, which actually I learned later that those are growth plate injuries because they grow differently. And I know the difference now. And I can tell everybody in my house had a different story as to when they thought that happened. I thought it was just completely normal. And it was a couple of years ago, sitting down at a table, we were talking about some different things. My mom had been in the hospital and we sprung her out of there. They were transferring her to hospice, called me up, and I asked to talk to the nurse, went over the lab stuff after they made 2 changes. 2 days she was off of oxygen. 2 days later, she went home. And they had no idea what I asked to do, but I changed her pH and made all those things work. And my brother had gone through the rear window of a parked car on his bicycle, was instant quadriplegic. Visited him out there. The Lord met him that day, and he went from two mornings before just getting a little sensation in his fingers in his right hand, a little bit of movement in his right hand, to almost be able to standing on his own by the end of the day. And the Lord gave me a kind of a vision and a word that within 2 weeks, and I told him, I don't really like talking in days because most people do are pretty flaky, but I keep hearing within 2 weeks. None of that's 2 weeks from today or 2 weeks from your accident. You're going to be working on the parallel bars and you'll walk out of this hospital. He was a young believer, and the Lord given him a couple of visions that he had met half the hospital staff in these dreams and visions he had before he had his accident, which is really interesting. But he ended up walking out of there. So anyway, we're talking. My mom says, I know what caused all that. I go, really? What was that? He says, when you crashed your tricycle. I said, what tricycle? That big one you had. I had a chain-driven tricycle. When I was about 5, I loved that thing. We moved in a new house, really steep driveway. Look at that steep driveway, and I love being in the air and going fast. And I went off of that, went to the other side, hit the curb, busted the tricycle in 2. That was the first bike I broke in 2 on that driveway. And she said 2 weeks later, in your hospital. So for me, it was spinal injuries, neural issues to set the stage for all these lifelong gut issues later. My brother brought home strep throat. I got full of fungal infections, and yeah, just life was downhill from there.
So, Dr. Brad, what was your personal turning point that led you to write The Exposure in Lyme and Chronic Illness?
Um, I've had Lyme myself, and all the things that I just talked about, no one else figured out. It's interesting sitting at the kitchen table talking to my mom and my brother, and okay, so that's what started it all, and that makes sense. It really does. When I got Lyme disease, I didn't have the tools I have right now. It took a long time to figure it out. And once I did, we started working with a lot of people that had that. It's one of those uncurable things that's out there, and too high a percentage of people that get it have it the rest of their lives. And there's keys and there's tools that nobody knows that keeps them sick like that. Everybody thinks something like Lyme disease, it's just caused by one bacteria, and there's a magic bullet. You can nuke it with a magic bullet and it'll go away. And that's just not the case. So the idea of that book, it started off with Breaking the Chronic Nightmare of Lyme Disease. Wrote that and realized we need to include everything that goes on with chronic illness, because candida leaky gut's the root of almost all chronic illness, and Lyme disease is one of the kings. It's really worse than cancer. In a large part, it can affect every organ system that you have, and no one knows how to deal with it. They're all chasing this elusive infection, and that's not what the problem is. So the book was birthed out of, when you look in that whole forum, the whole arena of Lyme disease, everybody's chasing the wrong thing. And you have experts about being sick. I call it YouTube PhDs. People know all the issues about all the tests, which are totally dysfunctional, completely inaccurate, all the treatments, which is completely useless. And they throw all these things around to keep people as sick as themselves.
Well, they have to keep us sick, right? Because that's how they make the money.
Well, it's other people in forums and all that are doing this, because they swallow the blue pill instead of the red one.
We're going into the matrix land, right? Like everybody wants the blue pill, but they don't want to take the real pill, the real reality of what life is.
That is an amazing prophetic movie of the reality of life. And it's, there's a bunch of things like that. Like you look at Tolkien's, the trilogy after The Hobbit, that is amazing prophetic work. You look at C.S. Lewis and his I forget whether that's Adventures in Narnia, but that whole Narnia series is a major prophetic book, which is an allegory of talking about stories you can relate to that really mean something else.
Yeah, I've been saying it for years, Dr. Brad, that pay attention to the movies, because the movies are actually telling us things, giving us insight into what is coming or what has come and what we missed because we were blindsided. We were too busy with the blue pill. We weren't with the red pill.
Yeah. So the book is a red pill. It's not cut and paste like everybody else's cut and paste. And there's a ton of verbiage in it in other books that doesn't mean anything. Yeah. And people like facts, and that's why I call it a YouTube PhD. There's nothing to process it, and it's not relevant to anything. But these people become popular because they talk in a language that people want to hear, but it doesn't benefit them at all.
Yeah.
And they get people.
Yeah, Dr. Brad, I'm going to pull your book up so you can explain a little bit about the cover and all that, because I like the cover because I'll get you to explain it. I'll pull it up.
I'll hold it up right here.
And I'm going to pull it up for all my viewers that are watching a video. For the audio listeners, could you just explain what the cover looks like and the colors and all of that? Because colors do resonate with me as well.
Yeah, the whole idea behind that book is we're always in the dark about what the critical keys are that are going to set us free. And that picture is a door opening with light starting to trickle around the opening, which is an invitation to come in to seek the truth.
Oh, see, I didn't look at it like that at all. But
Yeah,
thanks for sharing that, because that's why I like to bring the covers up, because I like to get my guests to explain their covers, because for me it's a different aspect, right? And for my viewers it might be a different aspect. Like it depends on how we see it, eh? But opening that door to getting answers, I like that.
yeah, yeah. So it's an allegorical picture that's profoundly deep.
So why the color yellow on top for the wording?
Well, it's interesting. Yellow's the most visible color of everything. And, you know, you look at vehicles driving down the road or airplanes up in the sky, the most visible thing that you can see is yellow. And on a black background, it really pops and it opens up quite a bit. So it grabs your attention. And white's another color that looks really good on there. Other colors won't do that same effect.
I, that makes a lot of sense, because all the street signs are all yellow as well. Like when you're driving on the road and the yellow line, and I never thought of the yellow like that before. Just learned something new about yellow. Where do you start when evaluating someone with years of unresolved symptoms, Dr. Brad?
Where do I start evaluating them, you said?
Yeah, evaluating them, because you treat people with chronic illness, correct?
Yeah, that's been my specialty for 4 decades, or the tail end of that. So that's a long time. My process is radically different than what most people's experience is. We always start off with a consult. I've got some paperwork that people fill out that gives me a really good idea about what's going on inside of them with all their metabolic functions and all that. So then we talk about that. And a consult with me is pretty common for people to learn more in a consult with me than they have in working for oftentimes decades with multiple clinicians. You have to find those historical roots of what allowed all things to develop before you can offer any hope at all, because that's where all the keys are. You've got to deal with all of the root keys that made people get in the place that they are. So we start there. Then our evaluations are, some people think they're anally insane. I don't. You look at Mark Hyman, he's the most well-known, the most famous of all functional medicine doctors. His intake of a new patient is 100 different testings.
Wow.
We're 4.5 times that with everybody we see. And the reason why that is you need to understand how every system in the body is functioning at every different function in a minutia level to figure out what's causing all of those and how to resolve them. You need to do an in-depth evaluation of food intolerance, because gut function is one of the most vital keys to health, and all the food intolerance testing is only 2 to 3% accurate. So we're over 97% accurate with what we do right on the first day. Then we go through infective issues and toxic issues. So by the time we're done, we're generally over 450 tests with everybody. But on day one, instead of waiting 6 weeks for lab results and all that, you know what all your metabolic functions are, what areas of those are, what the root causes are, how to resolve those, what's going on with your gut, how we need to address that and fix that, how you need to eat to be able to heal, liquids you need to be able to drink to promote healing, the things that detract from that, all the infective issues that are going on, and how to address all those. And we start off on day one right there.
Well, I found something on your website, Dr. Brad, about take 3 pictures of yourself. What is that part of the testing?
Is what part of the testing?
And on your site it says
Oh, the 3 pictures, is that what you said?
3 pictures.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand that at first, and then I got it. When you look at, there's an old word saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yep.
The skin is actually a window to look at the reflection of health in somebody's body. Our skin is a secondary elimination organ, and it tells us so much about health. Some people's skin is so dramatic in what it shows that there's been a few people over the years that I could do a complete consult just looking at the skin.
Oh, wow.
It tells that much about their health inside. Between the color of the whites of the eyes, called the sclera, the iris of the eye, the color of the skin, the hues, whether it reflects light, the lines in the skin, whether you got women with facial hair, whether you got acne, what kind of acne, cystic acne, or all kinds of things. The hair tells us so much about hormone health and all that you have to be able to see those things to complete the picture.
Yeah, when I seen that, I was like, I wonder if that's part of the testing. And it is. A picture is worth 1,000 words, because when you really look deep into the picture, you can see a lot of things, just like the background of that you have in your background, the mountains and that, right? It tells 1,000 words, and that's how our skins are. That's how our bodies are. So I found that interesting. So I was like, I needed to get that out there for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Did I satisfy your curiosity?
Yeah, you did. I'm a curious dog, am I not?
Good.
Mrs. is always going down rabbit holes. I always want answers. So, Dr.
That is a sign of intelligence. That question of why is a sign of intelligence. A lot of parents get frustrated about their kids asking that, but as a sign of intelligence, there's curiosity.
Yeah, I was that kid. Why this? Why that? Why can we not do that? Why?
Yeah. Well, that's part of what makes you a great podcaster, because if you have a question why and you have an organic conversation, something comes up in a conversation and you can spin it off to answer any question that your mind brings up or that you would think your audience would want answered.
Yeah, if I want an answer, I'm sure somebody else out there wants an answer too, right?
Right.
So, Dr. Brad, why do you think chronic illness remains invisible or misdiagnosed so much in today's world?
That's really simple. And I can give you a pretty short answer. The answer is pretty long, actually, but there's no doctor school that teaches chronic illness.
Really?
Not one. Yeah. There's a article put out in JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association, I believe it was back in 2006, that said that the medical education had not changed for 110 years. And the bottom line of that article was that all of their education is on acute illness. All of their graduates, all medical doctors, are completely unequipped to even evaluate chronic illness. The same goes through with all the alternative schools, chiropractic, homeopathic, and naturopathic. No school teaches chronic illness.
Wow.
And the evaluative tools are all set up to reduce symptoms, not find and deal with root causes.
Yeah, let's get into that, symptoms compared to root causes.
Oh, okay. When you go back a few centuries, Louis Pasteur is the father of the germ theory. He's the one that developed microscopes so that they become very functional. And he had a belief that germ A caused disease A, germ B disease B, germ C disease C. And if you could eradicate the germ, the disease would just cease to exist. He came up with some vaccines for rabies, which saved people's lives. And it's the only vaccine that's really shown to do that. But he had a contemporary by the name of Claude Bernard who taught physical vitalism in the medical schools in France. They're both in France. And physical vitalism basically stated it's the health of the body that determines whether these microbes and disease can grow. So by the end of Louis Pasteur's life, Louis Pasteur said, the germ is nothing, the soil is everything, relating to what Claude Bernard was teaching. He realized he'd wasted his whole life doing the wrong thing. When Carnegie and Rockefeller invested a bunch of money into the pharmaceutical companies Merck and Pfizer back in the early 1900s, Rockefeller came up with an idea to set up some schools to change the course of medical education. Those schools were Chicago University, University of Chicago, and Rockefeller University. He taught lab testing to all of his students because the lab testing showed symptoms, and the whole goal was to address the symptoms with pharmaceuticals so he'd increase his profits with his investments. So as he did that, he hired the Faulkner brothers, who went and toured all the medical schools in North America, throughout the United States and Canada, came back with a scathing rebuke how bad they were and how half of them should be shut down. And they needed a science-based curriculum, which he was developing that science-based curriculum in University of Chicago and Rockefeller University with his lab testing. Then they got a hold of, I think his name might have been Welsh, to set up Johns Hopkins University with that curriculum that was there with the science-based issues. Within 5 years, the 175 medical schools were down to 70-something. And all of them had the curriculum that Rockefeller developed in those two colleges set up as a pilot in Johns Hopkins University. So that's the background to where all that comes from. And every other profession are medical doctor wannabes, and they just follow suit. But they threw away all their clinical diagnostics in trade for using lab tests, which are just not accurate enough to tell you anything. So that's the root of where it all comes from.
Well, and you mentioned that no doctors out there have been any education on chronic illness. So how do we how do we get rid of chronic illness if no one is being taught?
You got to find somebody who specializes in that, which there's not many of us. I've got about 3.5 decades of postgraduate continuing education, functional medicine. Those doctors don't know chronic illness very well either, but within that group, you have scientific understanding that's truer than other places, but the medical doctors infiltrated that and they converted that into more of what that is. And so those intuitive skills have been replaced. So you had to rub shoulders with people who had more of the intuitive skills from yesteryear to really get the ability to do that. And this has been my arena for 4 decades. So the personal research is thousands of hours. And every person we work with is like a clinical trial. because we don't do anything generic. We don't use protocols that everybody else does. We test to find out what's going on with people. We test to find out what root causes are. We test to find out what resolves that, and that changes multiple times as somebody starts to heal. So everybody else just has a sheet of paper they hand to somebody, here, do this, and you'll be better. And that's what most people expect, to do better, but their issues don't resolve. We're over 90% resolution of people who have worked with doctors for a decade or multiple decades, multiple specialists, oftentimes world-renowned specialists who really got no help anywhere. We're over 90% of those healthy again with our unique approach.
So, Dr. Brad, what common myths about chronic illness do you want to debunk today?
The biggest issue, Dr. Jeffrey Bland, the father of functional medicine, he came up with these 4 facts of all chronic illness that people need to know. First, it doesn't resolve like a common cold on its own. It won't get better. So a typical lifespan of a virus is about 10 days. About 10 days of incubation, about 10 days to resolve it. And that's what you see in the flu and colds and all that. When that's not happening, that's your first suspicion. Second is it gets worse over time. So instead of not resolving, you're going downhill. Third, there's multiple organ systems involved. So, it may start in one place and then something else gets involved in something else and something else. And 4 is there's a multiplicity of causes. It's not just one cause. And what we talked about earlier about people thinking Lyme disease, is one bacteria and you find the magic bullet, you kill that bacteria, you can get better, are absolutely completely sucked into the lie of the system. They're deceived and they will not get better with that belief system.
Well, thanks for getting those 4 facts out there. I'd like to get the good information out there for all my listeners, because we need to start speaking truth. We need to start getting it out there, right?
Right. So if you want me to expand on that just with Lyme disease a bit, so I'll make it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Lyme is a Borrelia bacteria. Apparently, with the JFK files being released, it's finally confirmed that the tick-borne diseases were created by the bioweapons labs, probably on Plum Island, and that whole story is true. And if that's true, then they would have hot-rodded syphilis, which was the most impossible disease to cure known to man throughout antiquity. So it's a corkscrew bacteria that swims 2 times faster than our fastest swimming immune cell, and it reads our own proteins, makes a shell over the top of them, so our immune system thinks it's meat and just doesn't do anything with it. So it's a very stealth bacteria, does all kinds of crazy things. The primary bacteria they test with is B31 or Borrelia burgdorferi strain. We've only found that strain in people that have gotten sick up around Connecticut, the northeastern coast of the United States. It's really not anywhere else. There's a whole bunch of other strains that cause it. Along with that, there's Ehrlichia, Rickettsia, Babesia. Ehrlichia is a small round bacteria that invades your immune cells and paralyzes your immune system. Rickettsia is a small round bacteria that invades the lining of your blood vessels in your gut. It makes your blood vessels rough, so the blood cells tumble as they go down your arteries instead of slide like a Teflon slide in the gut. It further destroys the digestion. And Babesia is a small one-celled animal parasite that climbs the red blood cells and eats them from the inside out like a birch leaf miner. Takes the inside of the leaf and just leaves a skeleton from the outside. The babesia cause malaria-like fevers. It makes it so you can't carry oxygen, you can't absorb, carry, deliver, utilize oxygen. So anemia, all kinds of other things happen with that. And those 4 infections are what classically make up Lyme disease. But what sets the stage is H. pylori infection. That's a squid-like bacteria that screws in the stomach wall, makes so you can't produce stomach acid. Without stomach acid, you can't digest and absorb your proteins, your oils, your minerals. So it totally messes up your digestion, depletes your nutritional capacities and your health overall. Along with that, there's pathogens grow in the gut. The biggest pathogen in the gut is Candida. It's got a yeast form, a fungal parasite form, and a mold form. Those all morph back and forth. The worst of those forms is fungal parasite. Almost everybody talking about Candida deals only with the yeast form, and it's one of those protocols. Here's what's on a sheet. Follow this. That doesn't work at all. So that's generally what sets the stage, along with gut atrophy of the lining of the gut and food intolerances. So you look at what's going on with Lyme disease. Lyme disease isn't a tick-borne disease, it's a fluid transfer disease. So anything that takes fluid from infective hosts can infect anybody, anything that contacts that. So mosquitoes can transfer it, gnats can transfer it, biting flies can transfer that. Take an old world day to share a milkshake, that can do it. Sexual fluids have it. Crosses placental barrier, gives to babies. It's in breast milk. There is no respect of any boundary by a microbe. So anything can cause it. Biting flies all over the globe, spiders down south, uncooked meats that were infected with it in the first place. We have all of these different vehicles to bring it, and that's why I call it a fluid transfer disease. So,
Wow. So, Dr. Brad, are you telling us that it could be passed down through genetics? Because you're saying breast milk and stuff
that's not genetics. Right? That's body fluid.
Okay.
Breast milk is a body fluid.
Okay.
And it crosses the blood barrier of the placenta and goes from the mother into the baby. We've had people 3 generations placental transfer.
Wow. Wow.
If you're intimate with somebody who has Lyme disease, you're a carrier. You may not be symptomatic, but you're a carrier. There's absolutely no way you cannot be. If you get pregnant when you have Lyme disease, there's no way your infant is not a carrier.
See, and so many people don't talk about this stuff, Dr. Brad. People talk about this with HIV and that, but they don't talk about the Lyme disease being transferred through liquid fluids and stuff like that.
Yeah, because people, the powers to be want to promote it's tick-borne, but it's not. Can be. It's not limited to that. Not at all.
We have a question that came in, and they want to know, is Lyme disease only through ticks? And how you're sharing this now, we're learning that it's not just through ticks, correct?
Studies are over with that. You look at the blood supply, for transfusions and all that. 2 to 3% Lyme disease infection in the states of Minnesota and Wisconsin, or where the epicenter of Lyme disease in the Midwest. You just got to dig around and find the statistics. Some of these I got from Tom Greer. He was the top researcher in Lyme disease that I'm aware of, and anyone else that I know of. He was a head pathologist in a research hospital, and he had access to all of the governmental numbers of things that are hidden to the rest of us that are out there. So he was a wealth of information on a lot of things. And in testing people the way that we test, we can tell where things, how long somebody's had, how they've got it, and it just becomes obvious.
So, Dr. Brad, can you recover from Lyme disease or you can't?
Our people who follow our instructions and go through what they need to, they no longer have it, and they continue to not have it and not get it. No resurgence for well over a decade.
Wow.
You know, tracking people like that, I've been Lyme free for well over a decade, and probably a decade and a half. And I had it pretty bad. My wife's been free for close to the same time.
Wow.
And we have several other people who have also.
So, Dr. Brad, we have a question here. What is a memorable case? What changed and why when the right root cause was addressed? So what was a memorable case that you've done?
I've got 7 of them, but this one's on the top of my mind because I thought about this. We had a young lady come in. She was 17. When she came in, she was born failed to thrive her entire life. She'd been to the most prestigious medical clinics that were available multiple times, no idea what's going on, no help. She was afraid to be measured because every time she went to a medical doctor and they measured her, they threatened to rip her out of her Christian homeschooled environment and put her in foster care, pointing the psych card that your parents are abusive and they're causing all of this. So they forced her to eat all kinds of things that made her sick just so she could stay home and social service wouldn't rip her out of her house. She, at 17, she refused to allow herself to be measured because of her history. She had Lyme disease. She hadn't cycled in over a year. So we started working with her. She started doing better. She started coming out of that. She allowed us to measure her at about 3 months inside of care. She was probably about 5'5", 5'6", somewhere around there, weighed 87 pounds and had 3% body fat.
Whoa.
You heard me right. Yeah, that was not a mistake. And that's one of those, that's lethal in a female. That's just lethal. And that was after months of recovery. She slowly started to recover. She loved to exercise. She liked to run, but she hadn't been able to do that for a long time. Her life started coming back. She was always dyslexic. She really struggled with school. That went away. She started to become quite cognitive. She decided she just felt led she needed to go to college, which that was completely out of the question when we started because she was so dyslexic. And she went halfway across the country to a college. Out there, she went through puberty a second time. And that was rough. They put her in a room that was full of mold. That was really rough. And we had to do a lot of management distantly. And she kept asking me, what am I going to look like when all this is done? I kept telling her, we have no idea. Your body has not had the nutrients to allow itself to grow. And now it does. So we're going to know once you stop, but you've got all the right tools, you're eating right. And she had to manage her own foods because the school food was toxic and all that. So she's cooking a hot plate in her moldy dorm room and, all that stuff. Anyway, out there, she met Mr. Wright. They got engaged. They invited us out to the wedding, and we had to go halfway across the country to the wedding. And the groom comes up to me and my wife at the wedding, and he says, I am so glad you guys are here. This day would never happen if it wasn't for you. That gets me choked up still because it's such a huge change. She was out cycling for over a year. It's probably 2.5 years before that came back. Medical doctors told her she'd never get pregnant. They got 2 happy, healthy children. They're, just a beautiful couple. And and they have their life back. That's standardly what people say about our care, is they get their life back. She's not as strict as what she used to be. She takes more liberties, and she posted every anniversary of the day she was declared free for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and that chronology was gut-wrenching. You know, one of those stories that just rip your heart out with all that, with a really, really, really a beautiful, happy ending.
Well, you worked with the root cause. You didn't work with the symptoms, and that's what made the difference.
That is what it takes. You have to address all of the reasons that allowed this stuff to grow in the first place. And it doesn't take that long. You know, we work with so many people that have been to other doctors. Right now I'm working with somebody that was doctoring with other doctors for pretty close to 25 years. Never got any better. And when you do things right, it doesn't take oftentimes no longer than if somebody just got exposed to get them well. Inside of the Lyme disease, the Ehrlichia rickettsiae are gone inside of 2 months. The Lyme disease almost gone at 2 months. And she's just progressing and going forward with everybody around her is just amazed because she's doctored with so many people. She's been so sick, completely blimped out with her body. She's losing weight at a healthy rate. And we don't do anything weight loss per se, but when you normalize all the functions of weight, it's the hormone dysfunction that makes people get large. Generally, it's not calorie consumption, and with the hormones normalizing, the weight comes back off. So, you know, it's a beautiful thing, but I've got so many stories like that.
And those are the stories that need to be heard. Those are the stories we need to be hearing.
Yeah, that story's in the book. There's every chapter in that book ends with a story except for one chapter, and that's the one on hormone dysregulation and intimacy. You know, the problems with intimacy with chronic illness. And I just felt it was better to not do a story on that for that chapter. If you look at the Bible, one of the most erotic books in the world is the Song of Solomon, if you get into the Hebraic language. There is not one type of sexual interactions that's not graphically depicted inside of the books of Proverbs and Song of Solomon, not one. And when you look at the book of Solomon, it opens the curtains, it sets the stage, and it closes the curtains, because it should. That's what goes on with that is what edifies and fulfills the couple. An interesting thing about that arena, I think it's in Hebrews chapter 10, it makes a statement, let the marriage bed be undefiled. What that means is not what people think it means. You can't get sexual fulfillment without covenantal commitment, long-term commitment, because that's what sets the arena for protection, self-worth, value, all of the things we need to keep going, men and women. We're not different in that arena. And what that word means is that in that context, when you make love to your spouse, and I like that word, I think sex is a derogatory, degrading term.
Yep.
Intimacy is one that is more what it should be. And making love is talking about the conversation of the whole thing, which is what makes it rich. So words mean a lot, and it's really, really, really important to use the right word. So when we look at the whole context of making love. The idea of let the marriage bed be undefiled, it means the God of heaven descends down into the bedroom and meets you as you pull each other out of this surreal, fictitious world we live into this arena of where there's only arena that we can enjoin body, soul, and spirit at the same time. Heaven descends, fills the room as you minister life and health and value and worth to your spouse as unto the Lord. That's what that phrase means. That's so powerful. People don't understand the richness of making love to a spouse lost in prayer.
There's too many stage doors open in today's world that nobody's understanding the word intimacy. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, Dr. Brad, because intimacy is not sex. There's so many steps to the connection, the conversation, the body, speaking to each other. That's why you're only connected to one other person. You're not connected to the world, and you shouldn't be sharing yourself with the world. And I'm so glad that you brought this up, because I've had many guests come on Teatime about intimacy. We really got to start talking the love language, not the sex language.
Well, if you look at the Book of Solomon, it's an amazing thing, because with every curtain opening, a similar scenario happens with body language. And the whole issue of the interaction of body language is to excite the sensations unto its absolute peak, unnatural level. So the fullness and the richness is expressed in this heightened sense of entwining. And that stage gets set up over and over, and then the curtains close to leave you to whatever fulfills you as a couple. And the only interaction that is anathema, that should not be entered into, is sodomy, anal sex, which is graphically depicted biblically for very, very obvious reasons. The colon is the biggest pool of pathogenic microbes and toxic things we have inside of a body. And it's not a place you want to open into fluid transfer of something, because it's so pathological. I mean, it's that simple. It just is. And people want to play and manipulate with that term quite a bit and ignore it. But that's the simple bottom line.
Yeah. I'm so glad that we're opening that door and having that conversation. And I like when we go down the rabbit holes of different avenues and people are like, well, we're talking about chronic illness and Lyme disease. Yeah, we're also talking about the body again,
Yeah.
Respecting the body and understanding the body and the organs of the body. It all comes to play as one.
Many years ago, Lord had me start teaching on biblical sexuality, was doing a lot of college youth retreats, and that happened in one of those, and the reaction was absolutely amazing. It wasn't what people would expect. Room got dead silent. People grabbed big beanbag chairs, comforters, chase lounges, pulled them all up close in an intimate circle, and they just sat down because they knew they're going to have a great drink. And the interesting thing about that, it never promoted promiscuity. It gave the reason why you don't want to do that, to keep that arena sacred and protected, because it needs to be. It's the easiest arena to defile. And you defile it, and that richness is gone.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people say a lot of words, Dr. Brad, and they don't understand the meaning behind the words. Like the word sacred, marriage, People in today's world, it's a big party. I'm just like, you know, you're going down a rocky mountain if you think it's a party. It's not a party. It's commitment. It's communication. It's connection. You know, but if you're thinking it's just a party, we're already on a lot of ripples.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I've asked groups of people, you know, watching people in their 80s with that talk. It's interesting to watch them respond. But I always ask, intimacy has 3 stages. You got foreplay, engagement, and aftermath. Which one measures quality, fulfilling sex, sexual interaction? Which one measures the quality of lovemaking and intimacy?
It's the afterplay.
Yeah. Why?
Because it's the connection of after the enjoyment.
Yeah, that's where all the reassurance of commitment and value and worth, protection, all that happens in the aftermath.
Yeah.
It's an absolute total statement. This is not just an act. This is something that is cherished. It is protected. It is highly regarded and highly valued. And you are the absolute apple of my eye, my heart, my all. I am here for you.
Yeah.
And those with the act never get that.
We don't talk about the after. We don't
Yeah.
talk about it in today's world. It's just wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and next. And it's just opening all these stage doors that today's world has gone dysfunctional and not
Pretty
understanding
much. Outside of long-term commitment, the only thing that can bring excitement is perversion.
Yeah.
Because people have lost the connection of what that arena actually is.
Well, it
You-
kind of goes back to Dr. Brad. It kind of goes back to our bodies, right? Understanding our bodies, understanding the root cause. What causes us to be permissive? You know, is it curiosity? Is it I can because I can? You know, like what causes it?
Well, it's interesting because we're a 3-part being. We have a body, we have a soul, and we have a spirit. All 3 have different languages. And in intimacy, it's only interaction we have where all 3 of those languages are expressed. For those who are doing sex, it's just physical. That's it.
Yeah.
It's mechanical, and although you don't acknowledge the other ones, every time you are intimate with somebody, you share a piece of you and they share a piece of them. So the more partners you have, the more fragmented you are, and the more dysfunctional your bed of intimacy is, because you are sharing all of your connections and all of the connections all they had with whoever you're with in bed. And that's a mind-blowing concept. But you take somebody like a prostitute, you're sharing with ridiculous numbers of things. Like O.J. Simpson, I think, claimed he slept with 10,000 women. You know, and how many did they sleep with and all that? You go to bed with him and you got 10,000 times how many partners in bed with you? You talk about dysfunctional.
Yep. That's crazy. Well, Dr. Brad, could you give me one word that defines your mission and what you'd like to do with chronic illness and Lyme disease?
One word that defines my mission, you said?
Yeah, your mission in life.
I can give you a phrase.
Okay, sounds good.
That does that. And I did this, did a podcast with a pastor years ago, and he just was awestruck by what I said. He'd never heard anything like it. My mission is just to be a conduit the Lord flows through. That's it.
Thank you for sharing that.
And he allows that conduit to give healing to with an accuracy that few people could ever hope to offer.
So, Dr. Brad, if anybody would like to reach out to you, how could they reach out to you and contact you?
There's a couple of ways. The easiest way, I've got a landing page with a free ebook on epigenetics, which is steps you can do to change your genetic expression, to change your destiny and get your life back. That's at getmewell.net. So that one's really easy to remember. And that'll take you to all my other connections. That'll take you to my webpage, podcast. I've got a lot of resources on that. And my webpage is being reconstructed. So it's got some broken links and some other things. I spent the morning trying to fix my computer so I can get in there, and it's not going to let me update to Windows 11. So I got to see if I can do something with what I have. And I needed to get it done before we got on here, because my podcasting platforms have not been real stable on it either. And so anyway.
And what final message do you have for everybody today?
There's chronic illness is a fallacy and it's a lie. Virtually almost every kind of illness that I know of can be resolved. And we've seen that in every manner that there is. We've got people have had big chunks of their thyroid removed surgically. They get pulled off of their thyroid meds by their medical doctors or their pharmacists, directed on how to do that, and they working fine. We've seen cancers, we've seen Lyme disease, we've seen every kind of hormonal dysfunction there is, infertility, autoimmune issues, dementia on top of that. We've seen it all. So these are some qualifying questions your listeners need to know. When you go and to choose a doctor, there's 3 questions you need to ask. 1, what's the percentage of people who have what you think I have? Can you get well again? 2nd was, how long does that take? And 3, how much does that cost? Anybody that can't answer those questions, you should just walk back out the door. Sad to say, I'm the only doctor or anybody I've ever talked to that can answer those questions up front with pretty good accuracy.
Well, I think we need to start having doctors that are upfront with us, right? Because we're putting our trust into them to heal our bodies.
Well, they're not equipped with the tools. And only 20 to 25% of what doctors do has any clinical positive effect whatsoever.
Oh.
And they can only help 20 to 25% of the people that come in. And that helping is only reducing symptoms, not getting them well.
Wow. I'm so glad to have you on Teatime today. It was a pleasure sitting with you. I'd love to sit and talk with you some more after the show and get to know a little bit more and have you come back and share some more as well. If you have any events or anything out there or any workshops that you'd like anybody to know about, let me know and we'll get that out there for you as well.
Go through that landing page. You got to leave your email, and that's benign. I don't hassle people with that. But I'll be having some events and some other things in the future. So those will be posted on the website.
Awesome. Well, I'm just going to do a closing summary and then we're going to wrap it up and we'll talk in the back of the studio. and let everybody enjoy their afternoon. So, Dr. Brad, thank you for bringing your wisdom and your warmth to Tea Time. You poured into us a reminder that healing isn't just about medicine, it's about choices, courage, and believing that we are worth the effort. By pouring into us tonight, this afternoon, with both your knowledge and your heart, you've reminded us that healing is not a single act, but a daily decision, a journey of small steps that lead us back to hope. To our listeners, take one thing from this afternoon and make it your own. Maybe it's asking a better question about your health, a step to take, or a bit of hope you hold on to. Maybe it's making one small change. Maybe it's simply refusing to give up on yourself. Healing doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen when we take showing up. So this afternoon, let this tea time remind you your health, your story, and your life are worth fighting for. One choice, one step, one day at a time. Until we gather again, may your journey be blessed with strength and peace. And I'll see everybody tomorrow, same time, same place, and we'll do it all over again.